All right, welcome into Surviving Paradise, the little podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses that they are living in a modern day spiritual paradise. I am your host, Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and most importantly, at least from my perspective, a kid raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the 1970s and 1980s. As I like to do, just warn those that may have stumbled onto this little show. We try to have some fun. We try to heal. We try to laugh. We often cry. Lots of sarcasm, humor, experiences, and observations, and they all come from this host. Never meant to offend you or anyone else. Just talking shop about Jehovah's Witnesses. And again, it seems like it's becoming a weekly thing. An additional warning, this particular subject can be quite triggering for millions of people. And so I want to warn everyone that we're going to delve into some serious stuff, almost all of which comes from the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, but is it ugly, and it may cause some emotions to stir. So just be warned. Last week, we took an initial look at some of the cruel messaging that comes from the faithful and discreet slave of Jehovah's Witnesses that is primarily aimed at shaming the gay community or gay people. It's worth saying it again that I hate this entire subject. I find it absurd. It's not a lot of fun to talk about. It is also, in my opinion, dangerous and deadly. And I struggle to wrap my head around any organization being cruel to innocent people, people who are happy, people who are living their lives, people who are minding their own business, and might I add, people who are created and born the way that they are, hurting absolutely no one. And that's the credo I live by in anything I do with a human being. I doubt that this is ever going to change for me personally. I've had years and years to think about it, and it's just an unbelievable subject to me, and we'll get more into that as we go along. I also want to state at least one more time as we set the foundation for what we're about to talk about, that Jehovah's Witnesses base their feelings about homosexuality on an ancient book written by many different men, everyone from sheep herders to kings of little nations, to scholars, doctors, anonymous writers. Isn't that interesting? All sorts of men. By the way, not a woman in sight in this book. Interesting choices by Jehovah. But this book also features such groundbreaking counsel and stories like talking animals, invisible bad guys. It endorses things like slavery, misogyny, killing people that don't agree with you, killing people that pick up sticks on Sunday morning, and a whole host of other goodies. And all of this we are supposed to take to heart and base our lives and decisions on in 2023. And that includes our view of our wonderful gay friends and family. Okay, out of the way. It's my goal to put a bow on this horrific subject, but taking a look at something I personally not only have experience with or dealing with, but that I feel is so deeply cruel and nasty, I think it's important to share to the world that and what many of our gay friends and family face that are born into or are exposed to Jehovah's Witnesses. It's a very serious subject. It comes with tremendous emotion, tremendous darkness, tremendous pain for anyone that may be gay and is exposed to Jehovah's Witnesses or raised as one. So again, trigger warning. What you're about to hear, you probably haven't heard in a while if you're a J-dub that has left. If you are a witness that is sitting here listening to this mentally diseased apostate podcast, in all seriousness, thank you for being here. Stay, listen, contemplate. Everything you're going to hear is from the literature your governing body has churned out by the billions of pages throughout X amount of decades, the last 100 years. There may be Jehovah's Witness apologists that, after pointing at the Bible as their touchstone in life, again, most Jehovah's Witnesses have never read the Bible. That's a fact. They then embark on destroying people's lives. If you think that's dramatic, ask a teenager that knows they're gay, how they feel about what comes natural to them and the impact it has on their life. They just love their family. They may even love Jehovah or God and live minute to minute in terror that their very God they seek to draw close to and their mom and dad they love so much are not only viewing them as the Bible says detestable, but they're reminded that the very God they love will soon kill them. And in the meantime, God and his organization, I should say, Jehovah's Witnesses, will require their parents, their family, and their friends to shun them, act as though they're dead already if they explore a romantic relationship with someone of the same gender. It's hideous. And homosexuality has always and will always exist. So I've often wondered, what is the long-term game plan for Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body? Will they continue to alienate and speak cruelty to millions of potential Jehovah's Witnesses? I guess in wrapping this subject up, I'm going to now share a few things in part 2 of this little installment and focus specifically on the bizarre comments that they have said and used to shame an innocent gay person. I'm going to focus in on how the elders, very briefly, attempt to speak to or quote unquote help a gay person. And I'm really going to hit on the messaging to teenagers and children that may be gay or maybe just try to figure out themselves and their sexuality. So let's start with our most recent messaging from them, or should I say some recent messaging from them. I've heard what comes next start to bleed into the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses. I've heard many witnesses, many of whom actually really love gay people or have gay friends and family that are impacted by this stuff, maybe even a closeted family member that is fighting their feelings. I've heard them start to speak softer, and I think you've probably seen it too. But pay close attention. What may seem like softer speech towards a gay person in Jehovah's Witnesses isn't that at all. Behold the inspiring information from heaven from the Awake of 2016, number 4 edition, which you can still find on their website. It says this, and notice for those of us that have been witnesses, exposed to it, raised in it, or long out of it, notice how it's gotten softer, or at least the writing committee has tried to be softer. It says this, quote, although the Bible condemns homosexual acts, it does not encourage prejudice, hate crimes, or any other kind of mistreatment of homosexuals. Jehovah's Witnesses choose to live by the moral code set forth in the Bible. They do not approve of the actions that the Bible prohibits, but they neither mock, I said they do not approve of the actions that the Bible prohibits, correct, quote. Quote, but they neither mock nor mistreat people whose practices differ from their own. The Bible thus makes a distinction between inclinations and practices. A person who has homosexual leanings can control what he allows his mind to dwell on, just as he would control any other wrong desire, including leanings towards anger, adultery, and greed. While Jehovah's Witnesses uphold the moral code set forth in the Bible, they do not force their views on others, nor do they try to reverse laws that protect the human rights of those whose lifestyle differs from theirs. End quote. Awake of 2016, number 4 edition. And there it is. The governing body's attempt at a soft comment, and one of the softer ones you'll find in their literature about gay people. But let me just say this. Once you're free of the endless propaganda, you undoubtedly have a keener eye, and you notice that they're still getting their message across to anyone paying attention. And the message is this: being gay is a choice. It's a choice, a leaning. Who you love or are attracted to is as simple as choosing. I like apples, you like oranges. I like pizza, you like tamales. It's just a choice, folks. Getting their point across. By the way, your choice needs to be our choice. You need to find homosexuality detestable, just like Jehovah does. You can control it all, these leanings, with more prayer, more field service, more Bible reading, and yes, I've heard an elder give that counsel to a gay person. Otherwise, you're just like someone who doesn't control anger. You're just like a married person who has an affair. You're just like someone who wants a lot of money. Apples to apples when it comes to sexuality, biology, and love. Love what we do, or else. But you'll note that they go out of their way in today's current climate to be sure that you realize they think gay people still have rights, and hey, we won't force our views on anyone. We won't mock you. However, in this not-so-soft reference, as you dig deeper, you see that they most certainly lie in this reference when they state they neither mock nor mistreat those who practice things different from our own. And I'm here to tell you, mistreatment is real. When they make a statement like that, I challenge you to tell that to a gay person disfellowshipped for who they simply are, a wonderful gay person. They've lost everything if they were a Jehovah's Witness. It is dark. Their family, their friends. I can tell you that I once spoke to a gay person, and they said this to me. They said it would have been easier to be taken outside the Kingdom Hall and stoned to death than to walk the earth without the people they love. Isn't that amazing? Let that sink in. Let's stick to the ignorant and the bizarre for a moment. The governing body doubles down on homosexuality being a learned behavior, a leaning, that it's all just simply a choice. Still no word from where I sit about the 450 animal species who also apparently live outside morality or choices in favor of things we call instincts. But I digress. They still say it's a choice, even though it's everywhere in the animal kingdom and beyond. But here's more from Jesus-loving guys. And this one, I can't help but just bang my head against a wall. Were you aware that just being apart from a significant other can cause you to simply and almost miraculously turn homosexual? That's right. That business trip or that work outing or those camping trips with the guys or the spa day with the ladies can suddenly spin you from a heterosexual person to a homosexual person because it's all nothing more than a choice, a leaning. From the Watchtower of 2014, April 15th, page 19, we get this, quote, reports from various countries indicate that living apart from a mate or children in order to work abroad is a factor that for some has contributed to serious problems. These include infidelity on the part of one or both mates, homosexuality, or incest, end quote. What? Imagine thinking and sharing with the world that you get this information from Jesus himself in his sky seat in heaven, and he lobs this doozy to millions of his people. Whoever wrote this, and again, it all goes right up to the governing body, they never consider that a gay person has been denying who they are all along. No, only that they're at risk to act on homosexual desires or turn into a gay person because they're not at home with their heterosexual mate and might be outside a kingdom hall traveling. No, they just switched teams because the time was right. And they reinforce this idea over and over again in their quote-unquote inspired literature. Again, this is not only comically wrong on every level, but it's always been completely bizarre to me. And you might ask why. They have spent millions and millions and millions of donated dollars to get this point across about gay people, claiming that it all has its roots in the magic book known as the Bible. And yet they haven't spent a fraction of the time or a fraction of the money to ensure that Jehovah's Witnesses know that Jehovah's also equally hates things like gluttony and slander. Nah, those aren't important. Those just simply aren't as important as homosexuality. And all of this, despite that you and I and any Jehovah's Witness can see that those exact things, gluttony, slander, ripping people off, are listed in the same verses with homosexuality. They are mentioned as just as heinous, just as awful, just as demonic, and just as disqualifying for people when it comes to the paradise party in the future. They don't get in. But they don't spend near enough time or any time landing home the point that all of these other sins are listed as just as bad as being gay. They simply focus in on the gay part. They often read 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. And again, this is all from the New World Translation for a witness that may be listening, which says this, and here is the proof. Quote, "Or do you not know that unrighteous people will not inherit God's kingdom? Do not be misled. Those who are sexually immoral, idolaters, adulterers, men who submit to homosexual acts, men who practice homosexuality, thieves, greedy people, drunkards, revilers, and extortioners will not inherit God's kingdom." End quote. 1 Corinthians 6, 9, and 10. And here is one of the best examples of Christianity a la carte, a term I use often, where the governing body lifts what they want, leaves what they don't want, right out of their own magic book known as the Bible. And I discerned this as a kid. You never see a judicial committee for such actual learned behaviors, things like overeating and gluttony, or getting hammered drunk, or ruining a person's entire life by running your mouth about them. No. The governing body doesn't really care that much about those things. The governing body is obsessed with sexuality. And even if you're a hardcore Bible reader, you have to see the hypocrisy here. Being gay is a learned activity, only it's not. And we talked about it in part 1. The rest of those things that you get a fireball to the face for at Armageddon are rarely ever enforced, talked about, or sent to a judicial committee. It's always a couple of things: adultery, having sex before you're married, fornication, or being gay. I sat on hundreds of judicial meetings. I'm ashamed to admit I was a chairman of many of them, and it's insane for me to even consider now. And I can tell you that 90% of those were all about sexual behavior, including homosexuality. And that's because the governing body believes and spews this rhetoric. They think it's all a learned behavior. It's a leaning. It's a choice. And folks, it's not. It's not. Don't mix up the language that they're using here to speak to millions of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you see a beautiful woman as a heterosexual man, is it a choice to approach her, ask her out, or sleep with her? Yeah, that's a choice. The desire or finding her beautiful is not a choice. It's simply built into us. And the same is true of our beautiful gay people. If a man or a woman finds another man or woman attractive, is it a choice to walk up and start a relationship or ask them out to dinner? Sure. Of course, that's a choice. The way they feel about them or finding them attractive is not a choice. It's not. But what about drunks? What about greedy people? What about gluttons? I can count any conversations about those sins on one hand over 40 plus years. So they not only back up, I should say, the false narrative with constant, demeaning, not so subtle messaging like this, but make no mistake, they then enforce it by means of disfellowshipping. They take the world away from a person who is gay. They separate them from their parents and their children. They ruin their lives. I'm not being dramatic. I'm telling the truth. Let that sink in. So going back to the 2016 reference, tell me again how they don't mistreat gay people? Jehovah's Witnesses, by extension, their leadership, the governing body, most definitely mistreat gay people. But back to the inspired messaging. Let's call it what it is. It's bizarre, it's sick, it's twisted, it's ignorant. It's just flat ignorance for an adult to write something like this with all the proof, with all the history, biology, archaeology, anthropology, psychology. It's ignorance to write this stuff. You've got an axe to grind. But note how they connect the dots between homosexuality and heinous things for the half-asleep Jehovah's Witnesses sitting in a Kingdom Hall on a Thursday night. Notice the messaging they slip under their nose. From The Awake, 1989, July 8th, page 27. We get this nugget of Holy Spirit. It says, quote, since sexual immorality is based largely on self-gratification, what? It often leads to more debased acts. And fallen human nature being what it is, once an act becomes commonplace, its excitement tends to wane. Thus, some homosexuals have gone on to sadomasochism and other vile practices. One Bible commentary says that the effect of such base and unnatural passions tended to debase the mind, to sink men below the level of the brute, to destroy the sensibility. End quote. Where do I begin? 1989. I was a ministerial servant when this doozy came out. Having sex with another consenting adult makes you apparently selfish. I'm trying to wrap my head around that one. Usually it's two people who just can't get enough of each other and they're interested in touching one another. That's it. Huh? By the way, you're going to get so bored with that person and the sex you have together soon enough that you're going to soon just absolutely slide into sadomasochism and other vile practices. I have many gay friends and gay family members very close to me. They're not doing this. For anyone paying attention to such inspired counsel, they would see how ridiculous this truly is. For one, as I mentioned, having sex with another consenting adult is usually mutually beneficial. At least we hope so. That's the idea. And when it's not, they work on it. How is it selfish? How is it self-gratification? The level of stupid here defies anybody with 4 brain cells. 2 gay people may decide to push the envelope because why? Just because they're gay? And by the way, why do we care? Why do we care if 2 consenting people want to whip each other or spank each other? What does that have to do with the rest of us? What? I mean, does this same line of thinking apply to someone who gets bored with pepperoni pizza, so they slide into the evil and they begin adding pineapple and mushrooms to their pizza? Oh, no. Why do we care what 2 people do in private? And what a broad brush to paint our wonderful gay people with. What? 2 consenting adults in a monogamous relationship? But you could see in messaging like this one from 1989, that with the governing body, it's all about control, especially when it comes to sexuality. But they go on, and it moves from the comically stupid to the downright dangerous and disgusting. In the Awake of 1982, June 22nd, page 6, in the unbelievably titled article, Chickens and Hawks, I'm seriously uncomfortable, and I'm just being honest. It says this, quote, the homosexuals, again, broad brush. You're a Jehovah's Witness, a gay teenager, someone gay, a gay male or female in the audience. This is what you are told you are from the governing body. It says this, the quote, the homosexuals are pushing for changing the laws to lower the age of consent and to legalize sex between adults and children. They are fighting for children's rights, they say, and make themselves out to be crusaders. Children's rights to be abused, prostituted, and sodomized. Their proclaimed concerns for children's rights is a cover-up for men whose only interest is gratification of their own sexual perversion. When the children become a little older, these loving adults dump them back on the streets and pick up new victims. Willing or not, children at these tender ages are unable to understand the choice they are making or to foresee the consequences. They are victims. They are vulnerable. Misguidedly, they seek affection from a homosexual and are psychologically devastated when they are cast off. Some are murdered. One homosexual man, people, you're sitting in a Kingdom Hall, you're a kid, and you get this. Back to the quote, Awake 82, June 22nd, quote, one homosexual man killed 33 boys and buried them under his house. Where was all that supposedly great love then? End quote. What? This is what they lump all homosexuals into. Another one from the heavens and Jesus himself, as claimed, the Awake of 1995, February 8th, page 16. Quote, true, some individuals may very well be prone to homosexuality, just as some individuals are, according to the Bible, prone to wrath. But the Bible still condemns displays of unrighteous anger. Similarly, a Christian cannot excuse immoral behavior by saying he was born that way. Child molesters invoke the same pathetic excuse when they say their craving for children is innate. But can anyone deny that their sexual appetite is perverted? So is the desire for someone of the same sex. End quote. This is spiritual food given at the proper time to Jehovah's Witnesses. What? Come again on they don't mistreat gay people? I'm not going to spend time, because I simply can't, on the horrific commentary from these two quotes on how horrific this is, and how they took the gay community, two consenting adults, male or female, who just love another person. That's it. They just love another person and want to be with them, and lump them in with pedophiles, child molesters, and said they're disgusting. And because they like someone of the same sex, they're all the same thing. What? This is so disgusting that this is still in print and available for anyone who wants to read this, that I can't even wrap my head around it. Never mind the disgusting irony that this entire organization hides pedophiles for decades, that they have a secret database, that they won't give it to the authorities, that they protect pedophiles, but then they lump just a loving gay couple or people into the same bucket with people committing crimes against children. By the way, governing body, you are committing crimes against children. You. How in the world do you lump two monogamous, consenting adults who love each other in with disgusting, perverted, criminal people who harm children? What? I'm moving on. I got to move on. The irony, the disgusting, the level of disgust just in these two quotes. And again, while I want to go into the child stuff, I can't. This is what's directed at a gay person sitting in a Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. If you're a Jehovah's Witness listening, thank you for being here. You're brave. Please stay. Please stay. We all know how you feel. Almost everyone listening knows how you feel. But truly, respectfully, how do you feel about this? I'm sure I know how a high character gay person feels about this comparison. And I'm sorry. No words. But they just continue the diatribe, folks. They continue this. Notice the years. Notice the time period that Jehovah's Witnesses are exposed to this. In the Awake of 1997, I'm now an elder. December 8th, pages 14 through 15. Notice the blatant dishonesty, the lying that goes on in this reference from the guys in upstate New York. Quote, "The Bible admonishes, O you lovers of Jehovah, hate what is bad. Hence, Christians are expected to hate every practice that violates Jehovah's laws." Interesting comment from people hiding pedophiles. Back to the quote, "Some people may even react with stronger feelings of aversion or disgust towards homosexuality than toward other types of immorality, viewing homosexuality as an unnatural sexual perversion. Those who practice what is bad, including homosexuals, can make radical changes in their pattern of thinking and behavior, and many have indeed been successful in making this transformation." Note this part. Quote, "Jesus himself preached to such ones, and on showing repentance, they became acceptable to him." Matthew 21, 31, and 32. Christians welcome repentant people from diverse walks of life. After leaving behind immoral practices, whatever they might have been, all can enjoy the full benefits of God's forgiveness because Jehovah is good to all, and his mercies are over all his works. End quote. Got to take a sip of my single origin Sumatra at this point. So much to say. But let's tackle a few thoughts. Did you notice how the governing body teaches their people? How they teach them? They make horrible comments about gay people. They even call them out as maybe one of the worst sins, that most people think that sin's particularly the worst of the worst sins. They lump them in with other sins or sinners, just a big old bucket. Then they drop in a supporting comment that Jesus spoke to such people, they said sorry, and they became acceptable to him. Friends, oh my God, that's such a witness comment. But friends, this is how cults and dishonest people get control of your mind. If you're listening, the Bible, the magic book they claim that was made specifically for them from Jesus and Jehovah, has 0 stories where Jesus spoke to gay people and said that they need to repent and be his friend. None. 0. Feel free to prove me wrong. Spend the next decade digging into the magic book, and please get back to me. There is nothing. Jesus encountered politicians, Roman centurions, prostitutes, whores, tax collectors, fishermen, a whole litany of people from walks of life. But in interesting fashion, the magic book forgets to mention anything about Jesus speaking to or about a gay person in any of the Gospels. So the creator of all things in the universe, who came to lay down his life for everyone, apparently forgot he had a lot on his mind to mention something that would affect and impact millions of precious people's lives. But the governing body judges it as bad. They throw it in a slimy sentence about sinners and connect Jesus to it all. Jesus never commented on homosexuality, nor did he ever ask a gay person to repent. It's a mind game. And they do this at every meeting, every convention, every piece of literature. The unsuspecting Jehovah's Witness laps it all up, and they never realize what's happening. And again, in this reference, they tell the universe that being gay is a choice. It's a decision. All you have to do is stop, say sorry, and everyone's going to love you, especially Jesus. To a gay person in a kingdom hall hearing this, make no mistake, all that they hear is this: you're not normal, you're not enough, you're a freak, you're detestable, you're not okay. Those images on page 5 of the Watchtower study we're studying this Sunday morning of people being swallowed by the earth while Jesus and his 9 guys pursue you with bows and arrows from the heavens, well, that's all you have to look forward to, dear gay person. But enjoy trying to fake it. Enjoy trying to hide it and living your entire life as a Jehovah's Witness and a gay person alone. By the way, I still know you're gay. Don't fool yourselves. While this is my opinion on this little podcast, that's what a gay person hears. And then they get hit with a litany, an abundance of personal experiences. And I poke fun at them all the time on this podcast because we know they're usually a person with a name. Sometimes we find out they're in a certain country or continent, but not a lot of other details are provided, making this podcast host believe they probably never existed, and it's a neat little story by the governing body. But note this one. The Awake of 1989, April 8th, page 21 through 23, in the aptly titled article for gay people, Is There Something Wrong with Me? That's the title. I'm not going to read it all, but let's look in on Jason. Not a lot of details on Jason, but we get the ones they want us to have. Quote, Jason, now a Christian elder, likewise felt a sexual pull toward members of his own sex. Jason gained control of his sexual feelings. Further precautions were deemed prudent. He recalls, I also had to learn to exercise care, not to be affectionate with people of my sex, who I found aroused me sexually. By affectionate, I mean by light horseplay and hugging. Such self-discipline harmonizes with the Apostle Paul's exhortation to punish your body, treat it roughly, training it to do what it should, not what it wants to do. End quote. Thank you, dear Elder Jason. I'm going to call it now. You probably don't exist, or if you do, how anyone knew that you were a non-practicing gay and how they approached you to get your thoughts on the subject matter and then send it to millions kind of defies anything I could put together in my brain. Certainly invasive to you as a man. But then the only advice you have for the wonderful gay people like yourself is not to get involved in light horseplay and hugging. I'm going to call it now. That came from the governing body. Jason is likely not a real person. I'm pretty sure the complexity of what Jason has dealt with and is now an elder, as they want us to believe, is much deeper than don't roughhouse with another man, you're going to get turned on. But I want to take a few minutes to speak to how this affects a teenager or even a child, because they're targeting children. That may be realizing who they are, that are naturally attracted to someone of the same sex. God, this is so emotional. I have friends and family that are gay, and I can speak in limited terms to their journey as a heterosexual male, the challenges they have and more, and it's very limited. It's like speaking to how a woman gives birth to a baby. I'm not a woman, okay? And well, I will tell you this. I was also an elder for 11 years, and so I'm going to shed a little light on how devastating this type of rhetoric is to someone just trying to figure out who they are. The governing body has millions of pages of history, literature, talks, dramas, and videos aimed specifically at young people who may be gay. All of what I have already shared in this episode as to their viewpoint, as well as last week, is also how they feel about kids and teenagers sitting in a kingdom hall, struggling to figure this out and how to navigate how everybody else around them is going to react to who they are as a person. You'll notice the governing body doesn't offer any solace. There is zero creation of a safe space. And there's zero reassurance that they're loved no matter what. They only get that if they say sorry and hide who they are. Let that sink in. How bad is this? One example, targeted at a teenager. A teenager. Literally, go back in time as an adult. Where were you as a 14, 15-year-old? Here's what they think they need to hear. From the series Teenagers Asks, I'm attracted to the same sex. Does that mean I'm gay? What a title. From 2012, June 26. Quote, the Bible's stand is not unreasonable. It simply directs those with homosexual urges to do the same thing that is required of those with an opposite sex attraction, and that is to flee from fornication. The fact is, millions of heterosexuals who wish to conform to the Bible's standards employ self-control. I'm getting upset and emotional, despite any temptations they might face. Those with homosexual inclinations can do the same if they truly want to please God. End quote. Unpack that. When you run a cult, you get good at getting what you want while subtly employing mind games. Proven. Fact. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, it's all right there in a couple of sentences in 2012 to teenagers. You certainly get a snapshot of the writing committee in upstate New York. In that reference, they compare the feelings of a gay teenager to the feelings of a heterosexual teenager. They try to create a common ground, like it's all just the same thing. Non-gay kids practice self-control with their desires. So can you, gay kid. But do I need to point out the obvious here? The obvious. Because the gay kid knows the obvious. While a hetero teen has the hope of one day finding romantic love, maybe it's not at 14, 15, 16, 17, but they know that someday they get to be with a man or a woman, someone special, and have a life of intimacy. The gay teenager in Jehovah's Witnesses will spend the rest of their entire life alone, aching for companionship, aching to be touched, aching to be loved physically and emotionally, all while navigating that bad feelings that they have about themselves, bad feelings that they can't share with anyone. People, a gay teenage Jehovah's Witness signs on to a life of solitary confinement. They live in the dark. They live alone. They live in pain. Their only hope as a gay teenager and a gay adult in Jehovah's Witnesses is that Jehovah and Jesus make all of their feelings magically go away when they slip into a pair of khakis or a nice dress, get a pet tiger in the paradise that is supposed to come any day now. It's only been a century waiting. Their choice? What's their choice if they decide not to do that? If they don't, they may find companionship, and likely will, with another loving gay person on this planet. But even then, they get to live with the fact that Jehovah hates them. He hates them. They have no family or friends because they've likely shunned them, and that they soon will be killed, along with their partner, the person that they found out in the world that they love more than anything, at the wonderful fireball party known as Armageddon. Yeah, Fireball farty. I almost said it, and it deserves it. The good old faithful and discreet slaves seem to miss this little detail in this reference. Just passing on Jesus' counsel that no one can confirm, that you just need to use self-control. the rest of your lonely life. That is the message to a gay person, most specifically a gay teenager among Jehovah's Witnesses. Wow. In this same article from 2012, there's an illustration of a youth standing at a crossroads with arrows pointing down the two possible roads. It's decision time. What a decision, huh? It's captioned with the following, quote, "All youths face a choice, either adopt the world's degraded view of sexuality or to follow the high moral path set forth in God's word," end quote. No drama here, dear listener. No drama. That's their choice. What a choice for a gay person. If you've never contemplated that, sit in it with me. Stay in, live alone the rest of your life, aching, in pain, likely facing depression, alone. As you age and paradise doesn't show up, imagine how that begins to feel. Or you could leave and find love, but Jehovah hates your guts. He's watching on from the sky. He can't wait to have Jesus and his 9 guys kill you and the partner you found in the world. By the way, mom and dad don't talk to you anymore. You have no family. You get to explain that to a partner. This is the choice of a gay person in Jehovah's Witnesses. And look, I've held crying people in my arms. So many faces, so many names. As I sit here, I wonder where they are. I don't know. I've been gone for 14 years. But I'm also going to admit something else, as I do on this little show. As an elder, I upheld this crap. Make no mistake, I was kind of the loving elder. I'm just going to say it. That's not ego. People came to me because they knew I would hold them in my arms. I would talk to them. I would listen. But I couldn't do anything for them. I couldn't help them change their life. I had to use the magic book and look them in the eye while I cried with them and just tell them, you can do this. We're all going to live in a paradise earth soon. I'd go home in a puddle. I knew what that life meant for that person. And subconsciously, I think many of us knew or know that that paradise is never coming. All we were really contemplating was the life in the immediate future for a gay person. I had to find ways to encourage a gay kid, knowing full damn well that they were facing a life alone and with crushed self-worth. But hey, they could always pioneer, right? That's the counsel they'll get. I couldn't go there. I hated field service, whole nother story. Or better yet, they could go to Bethel, at my time Brooklyn, now upstate New York. Incidentally, I want to note, there is a significant NPG, which stands for non-practicing gay population at Bethel. There was a huge gay population at Brooklyn in the 80s. Can you imagine the living hell that was for a homosexual male? Mostly men because, the ladies were substandard. There wasn't a lot of them at Bethel. It was mostly men. But you're gay and you go back there and with other gay men and you're all confined to a little workspace. Think about how insane this is. A gay teenager in Jehovah's Witnesses lives forever believing something's wrong with them, that they're broken, that they're less than good, that Jesus actually needs to fix them in paradise. Please don't underestimate the weight of this. If you're a parent of a gay kid and Jehovah's Witnesses, God, thank you for being here. Please don't do this. Please. Please. They feel like the invisible guy that they've been taught created all of this, including them, doesn't even like them. But now living in a home with many parents that often deal with their own emotions, including shame about their kid and disappointment with their kid. And for those Jehovah's Witness parents that continue loving and protecting their children while staying in this religion, I love you. Please keep doing it. You're the true heroes. Don't let 9 guys in upstate New York tell you how to feel about your children. But even then, I know that a good mother and father can't protect a kid when they get to the Kingdom Hall or they're exposed to this stuff from the governing body. But listen, there are some incredibly strong people that are gay and live among Jehovah's Witnesses. That's a fact. I know a couple, and to be honest, I'm exposing a lot about my own weaknesses. It was hard to be around them. Why? Not because I didn't love them. Thought they were great. Never entered my mind. I covered that last week. What? Good people. My people. Cool. No, it was hard because they were wonderful people, and it's because I felt terrible for them. All of us that grew up during that time period faced pages and pages of nonsense from the governing body on this, all linked right back to the Bible. And I want to show you an example of what a gay person that I was around or cared about was, as I've done in many references here, again, another experience. One that encourages a wonderful, innocent gay person that they can just overcome their gayness or be a non-practicing gay among Jehovah's Witnesses. And where do they get this stuff from? They get it from the governing body. The Watchtower of 2013, March 15th, pages 3 through 7, said this, quote, "One brother who was raised in a Christian household wrote that for as long as he could remember, he struggled with homosexual tendencies. He said, 'I always felt awkward. It seemed that I didn't fit in anywhere.' By age 20, he had become a regular pioneer and was a ministerial servant in the congregation." You guessed what comes next, folks. Quote, "Then he stumbled badly, was scripturally disciplined, and received help from the elders." And here's the counsel, and any J-dub or non-J-dub knows I'm right about this. Back to the quote. "By praying, studying God's word, and focusing on helping others, he picked himself up and resumed his spiritual pace. Years later, he admits, at times, I still have those feelings." You think? But I don't let them overtake me. I have learned that Jehovah will not let you be tempted beyond what you can handle. So I believe that God thinks I can make it. This brother concludes, "All the struggles I have endured will pay off in the new world. I want that. Until then, I will continue to fight." He is determined to stay in the race. End quote. Imagine the loneliness of this precious person. Imagine this guy, this brother. He's single for the rest of his life. He's waiting for a new world that ain't coming. It's a fairy tale, another thing Jesus never talked about. Isn't that fascinating? He gets to live a life of loneliness. And you know what else happens in Jehovah's Witnesses? It's worth a quick drop. Oftentimes, again, these are wonderful people. They're just gay. But oftentimes in a congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, a wonderful sister, a woman, will marry a man that she knows is gay or that fights those feelings, so to speak, a non-practicing gay man, because, ironically, the sister herself may also be fighting it. Maybe she's a lesbian. And then, I want to throw it out there, oftentimes the sisters live in congregations or in circuits or in geography where she may in fact be heterosexual, but she doesn't have any brothers to choose from, or there aren't any brothers, or there are not enough brothers, and she just wants to get married. This is madness. This is madness. It can't be denied. A gay man hides it and either lives alone. A gay Jehovah's Witness man may marry a sister who is also gay. They're not attracted to each other, but they don't want to be alone. A gay man or a gay sister, in many cases, a gay sister may marry I'm getting wound up. A heterosexual sister may marry a gay man because she's lonely, knowing that she's not his cup of tea, but she just wants to be with someone and there's no brothers to choose from. This is madness. This is madness. Sorry, getting fired up. Jehovah's Witnesses and being gay. It's a never-ending string to pull of madness, cruelty. And remember, the opening reference was they don't mistreat gay people. Really? Really? Before I turn into a total mess, I want to discuss what it's like to be an elder and to interact with a beautiful gay person that's Jehovah's Witness. I can tell you this, that based on my generation and experience as an elder up to 2007, it's everything many people probably suspect. It's an uncomfortable subject for elders. I mean, I'm sure it's not a big stretch to picture a bunch of dudes sitting around uncomfortable with anything sexual or dealing with complex sexual issues. Heck, most elders can't deal with their own feelings or their own kids, but imagine when this gets into the B school. Elders are so ill prepared to have deeper conversations. They're so unqualified to even speak to this type of complexity that they just lean into the only thing they can, and we know what that is, to enforce what the governing body tells them, to enforce the nasty rhetoric, including issuing lifelong punishment that to anyone that caves to a gay lifestyle. They just fellowship them. That's it. And I might add that, as you might suspect, in my experience, they go easier on gay girls. It's definitely a male thing. There's no denying it. I went softer on teenage girls than I did teenage boys. Look, I don't want to admit it, but I tell the truth on this podcast. I had a soft spot for sweet girls. Boys, don't get me wrong, I had a soft spot for them too, but it's different. So they'd go softer on a lesbian than they would a gay boy. This is the facts, folks. Saw it, lived it. And notice what they tell a gay teenager, an elder will. And I'm sure that if there's plenty of ex-elders that may listen to this. I hope so. Please call me if I'm wrong. I'm always open to being wrong. But I'm sure that you saw this with your own eyes. That what do we do about this? There would even be jokes. There'd be jokes. No, I did not partake in that. I would admit it. But these guys have no idea what to do with a gay teenager. None. And if you want proof of where their brain goes, what they lean into, what their leanings are on such a complex issue, they just do whatever the governing body wants. Let me show you an example. From the Shepherd the Flock of God book, chapter 13, section 3, we get this message. And again, you've seen in this entire episode that being gay is lumped in with every heinous thing that goes on earth like it's the same thing. And it's not. But that's how you control people in a cult. You twist their brain in knots. But notice this in this subsection of the Shepherd book. Again, not remotely connected, but lumped into the same bucket of disdain. The title, Determining Whether a Judicial Hearing is Required for Viewing Pornography. What does this have to do with me loving another man or what? It says this, and you're an elder, most of them ignorant, most of them appointed because they got 10 hours a month in field service, and they might be a good speaker, or they donate lots of money, or they do lots of construction projects. That's the facts. Subject for another show, past episodes. But that elder leans into this when facing a gay person. Quote, excuse me, an entrenched practice of viewing, perhaps over a considerable period of time, abhorrent forms of pornography would be considered gross uncleanness with greediness and needs to be handled judicially. Such abhorrent forms of pornography include homosexuality, and then they define it, parentheses, sex between those of the same gender. Thank you? Group sex, bestiality, sadistic torture, bondage, gang rape, the brutalizing of women, or child pornography. It is equally wrong for a man or woman to watch two women engaged in homosexual activity as it is for a man or woman to watch two men engaged in homosexual activity. End quote. Folks, this is under a subheading about pornography. And they dedicate the entire paragraph to taking shots at gay people. Watching two lesbians, watching two gay men is lumped in with bestiality. Okay, look, pornography is its own subject. But the governing body's obsession with hatred for gayness is on full display in this paragraph. Pornography features a whole ton of nasty stuff, but they focus in on the gay stuff. You won't find much on how to counsel or comfort or discipline a gay person among Jehovah's Witnesses. You may ask, why is that? An elder knows the answer. A former elder listening knows the answer. Let me help you. If you come out as gay among Jehovah's Witnesses, you are now under a microscope. And the first time you act on those desires, you are going to be disciplined harshly. In almost every case, you will be disfellowshipped. Fact. It's almost always a one and done situation. I dealt with situations where teenage boys, not yet baptized in some cases, experimented with their feelings with each other. Those guys paid the price for the rest of their lives. And to be honest, the majority of those I got to know personally that were gay, in my time, again, I'm out of the loop now, those folks all left the organization, or I've heard they left the organization, and boy, am I grateful. It's been my observation that many more gay people stayed in this organization during the 70s through 90s than they do now, from the 2000s onward. They stayed. They toughed it out. Now, not so much. But what that amounts to is thousands of people giving up one of life's greatest gifts, a romantic companion. I feel boatloads of anger for believing the lies about paradise and skipping my opportunities at college, higher education, other opportunities, and all of that pales. It isn't even comparable in comparison when compared to what a gay person does when they give up love. As I've stated a million times over, as that kid and then as I grew into an elder, I can't wrap my head around this subject. It's absurd. It is terrible. And it is most certainly mistreatment. I've come to realize that it's mostly due to me. It's just my own personality and experiences. It's absurd, it's awful, and I just have no words. I still struggle to understand how this could be happening. But this was just accentuated by everything going around me as a Jehovah's Witness. I was in 2 congregations where major wife-swapping networks were uncovered. Not kidding. The 70s and 80s saw a lot of disillusioned hippies following the 1975 lie. Some of those hippies went right back. They studied the truth book, got baptized, 75 came and went. They went right back to free love. And they were doing it with everybody else's mate. I saw brothers ripping each other off financially. I saw others not paying taxes. I witnessed elders protecting their kids from being disfellowshipped by pulling a few strings, wink, wink. I served and was friends with many closet alcoholics and gluttons. But none of these things carried the stigma or fueled the gossip mill like someone being gay. And so my head can't wrap around this subject. Where does all of this leave a gay Jehovah's Witness today? Look, I want to have something positive to say. And it is, find the exit door. That's my positive. There is a fantastic activist. I'm sure many of you know Paul Grundy and J.W. Fax. What an incredible resource and student he is. I want to give a big shout out to him. But he estimates through some math that there's roughly about 8,000 gay children born to Jehovah's Witnesses every year. 8,000. And for me personally, I don't care if there was 8. I don't care if there was 1. Those estimated 8,000 precious people face a lifetime of being told that they're detestable, to either control who they are and live alone, or make a choice and be shunned by their parents that held them as a baby. And eventually Stephen Lett and his buddies get to kill them all. That's the entire messaging about being a gay Jehovah's Witness. That's it. Those are your choices. Do they mistreat gay people? Most certainly they mistreat gay people. They don't take them out and stone them in the parking lot of the local Kingdom Hall. No, they look at them weird. They tell them they're less than good. They tell them they're going to die. They tell them to be alone and get in line, or they're going to toss them out there where they get to kill them soon. That's a choice? That's the choice a Jehovah's Witness gay person faces. And that includes kids and teenagers. I got no more words, folks. My voice is going. My emotional tank is empty. I hope we put a bow on this subject. Excuse me. It's one that we'll likely revisit because it is a hot button subject for thousands and thousands of gay Jehovah's Witnesses. And I just want to end with this. If you're a gay person among Jehovah's Witnesses, you're an incredible gift to this planet and all of those who love you, including me, even though I may not know you. I'm all about people, even as an introvert. Their character, what they give to the world, what they give to other people. They hurt no one. They're my friend. Don't believe the lies coming from Jehovah's Witnesses. Please don't build your self-esteem on 66 short stories compiled together and said to be written by the very invisible and awfully quiet sky god that, well, actually created you. For those gay Jehovah's Witnesses that might be listening, God, the human being in me tells, I just want to say, find the door, I'll hold it open. But if you stay, this is going to be hard. We know you have some tough decisions, but know that you will find community should you leave. You will find love outside that upstate New York publishing company. It's out here. Believe it. I hope that you make a decision that's best for you. It's not an easy one because you're going to lose something. But please live your life. Find love. Avoid your mind and heart taking in anything you get from the Fine Nine up in upstate New York. They're leaning into an old book that encourages all sorts of heinous crimes. And they lean into this, which, by the way, subjectively may not even be there. May not even be there. And certainly was never commented on by Jesus, if you still hold him in high esteem. That's it for me, folks. Tough subject. I've done all I can here. I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that wherever you may be, that you're safe and that you'll take some of this information to heart, dwell on it, think about it, and make a decision that's good for you. Until next week, be well.